Madam Secretary, could you do a roll of the members of the Operations Committee, please?
Mr. Martinez, Mr. Rodriguez-Pina.
Here.
Mr. Gonzalez, Mr. Pago.
Here.
Vasquez. Chair Gutierrez. Here. Vice Chair Ferre. We have a quorum.
We have a quorum? Thank you. This is the first meeting of the Operations Committee for MDX this year, so I'd like to start by wishing everyone a happy holidays and a happy New Year's today. And I'd call the morning meeting. Any declarations of voting conflicts?
If I could, on Thursday, I think we received information on item 5 on our agenda. And because I was not able to run a conflict check as to that item, I will recuse myself on that item. But everything else, we're good to go.
Ms. Secretary, in the event that Mr. Vasquez has to recuse himself, do we have sufficient quorum to go forward? Thank you. Any other conflicts? Hearing none. Do we have any public comments today before we begin? No public comments. That's fine. That's closed. Operation Action. Has everyone had the opportunity to review the minutes of the December 2nd, 2014 meeting? Any requests to amend or change the minutes? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to move.
Moved by Rodriguez-Pina, seconded by Chairwoman Gutierrez. Discussion closed. Anyone in opposition? Hearing none in opposition, it approves unanimously. Operations Action Item B, MDX Procurement Contract Number RFQ 15-13, MDX Work Program Number 8741.0.150, Construction, Engineering, and Inspection Services for the Design Building Project of SR 874 Ramp Connector to Southwest 128th Street. Who is doing the presentation for staff?
That will be me.
Well, okay. Ms. Cordero.
Thank you. The requested action is the endorsement of the Technical Evaluation Committee's recommendation to select the number 1 ranked proposer and direct staff to negotiate and enter into a contract for a not to exceed amount of $5.6 million. We received 4 proposals in response to the request for qualifications from A Square Group, American Engineering Group, SEMA Engineering, and Parsons Brinkhoff. All 4 proposals were deemed responsive to the requirements of the RFQ. A meeting of the Technical Evaluation Committee was held on Friday, January 16, and the committee evaluated the proposals and ranked Parsons Brinkhoff as the number 1 proposer. This contract includes a 15% small business participation and a 15% local business participation, and it has a contract time tied to the duration of the design build project of currently estimated for 1,095 calendar days. Staff, contingent to the approval of endorsement of this committee and approval by the board, staff will negotiate a contract not to exceed the engineer's estimate of $5.6 million. Only if staff is not able to negotiate within that engineer's estimate, then a contract will be brought back to committee and board for approval. Otherwise, we will just enter into a contract with a successful proposer. As a matter of disclosure, when this committee approved the Technical Evaluation Committee composition, there was a member of the Miami-Dade Public Works, which was supposed to be a representative of Miami-Dade Public Works included in the composition of the tech. Unfortunately, they didn't have resources available for us in order to evaluate the proposals. So we moved forward with the remainder composition of the Technical Evaluation Committee.
Do you have a board member on this?
Yeah, there was an oversight.
No? Okay. Mr. Vasquez, I understand you were the oversight on this. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Any comments based upon your observation?
I was happy to participate in the oversight of this. One of the things that stood out with me was how the tech took a hard look at. They kind of differentiated between the understanding of these firms when it comes to design build projects vis-a-vis construction projects, and I think they really took a hard look at some of the personnel, the certifications, and they took a real hard look at the approaches, not just telling me you know what you're doing and how are you going to do it, but they wanted to see some of the tools that were being brought to the table. So I was very impressed with how diligent the tech went about this. So I have no further comment but to endorse the recommendation.
Of course, on behalf of the committee and the board, we'd like to thank you for your involvement in the oversight. Any other questions from staff? Ms. Cordero? Statements, sorry.
No, sir.
Mr. Rodriguez, any other comments?
No, sir.
All right. Anyone wish to have any questions for staff on this matter? Mr. Pago, and is there anyone else on the phone now?
Yes, I have no additional questions. Maurice Ferrer on the phone.
Good morning, Vice Chair Ferrer. Happy New Year's to you and happy holidays.
Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? I hear none. Does anyone wish to make a motion?
I think it was moved by Mr. Vasquez.
Mr. Vasquez moved it. Anyone wish to second it? Seconded by Chair. Seconded by the Vice Chair and the Chair on this matter together. Any comments? Hearing no comments. Comments are public comments and comments from the board are closed. Anyone in opposition to this item? Hearing none, the item passes unanimously at this time. Action item C. And yes.
Before we move forward, Mr. Ferrer wasn't in there before you called conflicts. Does he want to? Does he have any conflicts?
Thank you for that very much. Vice Chair Ferrer, do you have any conflicts on any of the items today?
No, I have no conflicts.
Thank you for putting that on the record. I appreciate it. And thank you, Council. Item C, MDX procurement contract number RFP 15-4, General Engineering Consultant Services, Construction Management Services, GEC-B. Approval to advertise a request for a process, the RFP. Mr. Rodriguez, who is going to present for this matter?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We took a really hard look at the GEC contract, and we've modified some of the components, and I'd like Juan to walk us through how we're going to request for this advertisement proposal and how we're handling this procurement.
Thank you, Javier. Committee members, again, this is a requested action is the motion to approve the request for proposals for the General Engineering Consulting Services, Work Program Production and Construction Management Services, as well as other overall general engineering consulting services required by the authority. We're requesting an approval to advertise, soliciting qualified firms for the GC. Draft scope is provided as part of the package. We have defined the pre-qualification criteria for this project for the prime contractor as well as some of the subs. We've also identified the minimum requirements for the program that the program director must bring to the table, and this project will have 15% small business requirement as well as 15% local business requirement. The evaluation process that we're going to be looking at is a technical proposal and oral interviews. The proposals and the interviews will be evaluated by the Technical Evaluation Committee using the evaluation criteria that we have provided as part of the package, with the highest technical score ultimately being recommended for the selection. The Technical Evaluation Committee, we have the proposed committee makeup with a board member oversight, the Director of Engineering, the Director of Toll Operations, and the Director of Finance, along with a member, a representative from the Florida Turnpike, and a member from Tampa Hillsborough Expressway Authority. We wanted to go out to agencies that also use these similar type services to help us with the selection process, and since they better understand the type of services that these firms are going to be bringing to the table. The contract term that we're going to be proposing is 5 years with a 2-year renewal option. The renewal option will be exercised only at the sole discretion of MDX and subject to the consultant receiving no less than an above satisfactory in their annual consultant performance evaluations for the last 3 years of the contract term. So out of the 5 years, the last 3 years, they have to have an above satisfactory or higher. And one of the things that we're also doing as part of our revamping of the documents is that we're going to be providing an updated consultant performance evaluation form focusing on tasks that they're doing and also gearing it to how they're performing on individual tasks and then giving an overall annual report card for all the tasks rather than what we're doing today, which is, I think, what we're doing today is that we're grading the entire year as a whole. And what we want to try to do is really look at every task individually, because some tasks may do well, some tasks may not. But then you see the overall report card, and that'll be a true reflection of the services that they're providing. The GC contract, procuring this contract, accomplishes our requirements with the trust indenture to make sure that we have a GCO, signing off on our expenditures for the 5-year on the 5-year work program. It also includes support services as necessary for MDX engineering, finance, procurement, and tolls, and other components of the agency. So again, this is an extension of the staff of our staff. So they basically cover every facet of what we do in the authority. And one of the things that we did in the evaluation criteria this year, if you know, is that we really made it a point to look at the entire agency as a whole. So instead of being very generic in the evaluation criteria, we looking at all the areas that they cover, from engineering to procurement to finance to tolls, IT, public communications and involvement. We want these teams to really put together we want all the firms to put together a team that's going to address all the needs of the agency, not just, the global, but everything that we do as a whole. The work under this contract is funded through the MDX operations budget on a fiscal year basis, and also through the various projects in the 5-year work program. Again, the attached exhibits are the draft scope of services in substantial form. We're going to be tweaking that over the next couple of weeks. And the draft evaluation criteria are also in substantial form. The preliminary schedule right now has us advertising on or about February 3rd. Technical proposals would be due in mid-March, and we are hoping to have a selection by the end of April. And that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Toledo. I'll start with the individuals on the phone. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Toledo on this matter?
Yes.
And please identify yourself.
Maurice Ray. Am I there?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I just wanted to know who Tampa uses for engineering, or the two contractors now.
Who's the current contractor for this? EAC Consulting is the...
Tampa, for Tampa.
Who's going to be helping us with that?
For the Tampa Expressway Authority.
I think HNTB is their current GC on that contract.
And do they have anybody else that they use? Like, do they have an A in it? Yeah.
No, they only have one GC contract.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Ferre?
No, thank you.
Secretary Pago, do you have any questions?
No, sir.
Now I'll turn to the members of the committee that are here at the dais. Any questions? With Chairwoman Gutierrez.
Thank you. Good morning to you. Thank you very much for the presentation. I know you've worked real hard on updating this scope and all the changes, and I like the changes that have occurred. It makes it more of a whole to assist MDX moving forward. I do have one important question. Is the requirement here that anybody that bids on this contract cannot work on the other GECA, or is it that the same bidders can also, if they win, whoever wins, can also work on the other?
No, right now we've kept it the same as it is today. That if you're on GCA, you cannot work on GCB, and vice versa. And we do that to be able to address conflict of interest issues between both GCs and also between the subs going after procurements. Because the way that we have these contracts written right now is that the primes cannot pursue any additional work with MDX if they're on the GC, but we do allow subs to pursue other work with MDX, and we address the conflicts through the mechanisms that we have in the contract.
And if I may, a follow-up. When you say the subs, is it like tier 1 of subs or after tier 2 of subs?
It's tier 1 and below.
And below. Okay. And you have found over time that does not present any conflicts?
Correct. We've been able to address any issues that will come up where if you're on GC, for example, if you're on GCB and you've helped prepare documents for procurement, you're basically conflicted and you wouldn't be able to pursue that work if you've directly participated with a certain project. But if you haven't had any participation in the procurement documents or the development of the project technical requirements, then you would be able to pursue that work. And we address that through the GC. We run it by procurement, and we document that every time those conflict of interest letters come in. We keep those in the files to make sure that we are being consistent through the process.
Good. I am at ease because I was looking for that level of security that there isn't someone on the inside of a GEC that could maneuver a particular procurement in any certain direction. So thank you.
Just a quick question for purposes of having more information and educating myself on the GECAs and Bs. Is there a split that can, do we know the percentage split of amount of work that A gets versus B, roughly?
It varies by where we are in the work program on a fiscal year basis. As all the task authorizations are issued year by year, between July and June. It really depends on where we are in the work program, where the construction projects are, where the planning and production projects are. Typically, you've seen about a 60-40 split, and that varies either way. One year could go 60 to B and 40 to A.
So there's nothing systematic about it?
There's nothing really systematic about it. We just try to keep it. What we try to do right now is that we keep it, construction management is typically mostly with B, and the production and planning and overall program controls is with A. And
repeat that?
The production, which is plans, planning, PD&E projects, and the overall program controls are following how we're spending the expenditures of the projects and how we're meeting all the financial requirements of the organization are usually managed by A, and B does most of the construction management. And typically what we've seen is that 60-40, 50-50 split.
Thank you.
Other questions, Mr. Vasquez? Yeah. Oh, okay. Ms. Rodriguez-Pina, and then Ms. Gutierrez again. Okay, then Chairwoman, Chairperson Gutierrez again.
What I'm going to say is probably not perceived as a very nice thing to do, but I think the importance of this contract and the A, I'm going in to request that we have zero tolerance in procurement. There is no minor irregularities. We cannot tolerate from our GECs minor irregularities because those are things that could eventually get us in trouble, especially from our GEC. Zero tolerance.
Got it.
Also, I want to congratulate procurement and also Juan Toledo for adding the local percentage of the business participation. Extremely happy. I love that it has the small business. It always has. But the local business, and I think that's extraordinary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Rodriguez-Pina.
Basically, I was going to talk about the procurement process and make sure, Madam Chair, that's why I yielded to you, because I knew you have the foresight and the wisdom. So I think this will be a very great opportunity for us to make sure that we've learned from our past. And to echo your comments, I just want to add that comment to emphasize the importance of this. I think this is going to be a very competitive environment, which we want it to be a competitive environment, and let people bring in the best proposals available. So that's it. Thank you.
I need to appoint a board member, right? Well, Mr. Rodriguez-Pina, since you're to my left and Mr. Vasquez had the last one, I'm appointing, if you will accept, I'll appoint you to be the oversight. Okay. So Mr. Pina is going to be the oversight on this contract.
They just did.
So does anyone wish to move it in? This is a moving item, so we need to move it, correct? Does anyone wish to move it? Mr. Motion moved by Chairwoman Gutierrez, seconded by Mr. Rodriguez-Pina. We've had discussion. Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, discussion is closed. Is anyone in opposition to the item? Hearing no opposition, item passed unanimously.
Just
yes.
One
yes, Mr.
comment to add. As an FYI, more than likely in March, we'll be bringing back the GCA contract for renewal for the 1-year extension. And at that time, I'll give you a preliminary schedule on the reprocurement of that contract as well.
Well, that's the cart before the horse. We still have to find out if there's any objection to this contract first. Hearing no opposition, this contract passes unanimously, and now we've been updated by Mr. Toledo about what's coming in the future. Thank you, Mr. Toledo. I'd also like for the record to note that Vice Chair Ferre has made the meeting, although he's been participating throughout via telephone. Thank you. Good to see you, Mr. Mayor. Any other discussion on this item? Hearing none. Item 5, real property action items, approval to lease MDX parcel 11205-216.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to introduce Jason Green, who's going to walk us through this item.
Thank you. This item is for a motion to approve the lease for MDX parcel 11205-216. This parcel is located 4,000 Northwest 26th Street. It's approximately 15,000 square foot fenced lot. The prior tenant, America's Transportation, utilized it for storage of vehicles and moved out recently in the past few months. This parcel was purchased as part of Project 11205, the interconnector, and as it's currently construction, we copies as they become. Prior tenant, at the expiration of the lease, was paying approximately $38,000. Number 19. Winner was Auto Boutique of South Florida, Incorporated, for $37,525, of which is above the market. Leases for a 3-year term with consecutive and additional 1-year renewal options requiring both of our approvals. The lease is our standard lease template, which does require rent to be increased based on CPI. The 3-year estimated revenue is $112,575. Of course, this doesn't
Okay. Anything else from staff, Mr. Rodriguez?
No, sir.
If I may, I'm going to ask the initial question. What does Auto Boutique do?
They buy and sell vehicles.
So they use cars and what, they auction them and try to
I believe actually going to make sales out of there. They own a lot right down the street.
And what type of advertising did we do for the ability because we only got 2 bids. I'm just curious about that.
The advertising, actually, I received about 40 phone calls on this. We put signs up on the parcel and put ads in the Daily Business Review. The most attention, was for 10 years. When I think people saw it. So a lot of people said, some will pay 20, will pay. We're expecting some firm bids up in that range. Because they figured that they were not willing to spend somewhere in the market. No.
Okay, I have no other questions. Other members of the right here, Mr. Rodriguez Pena.
Jason, from a contamination perspective, do we have provisions, to make sure that they don't contaminate our property and then we're left with a mitigated?
There's a whole section on hazardous waste disposal.
So how would we know, in other words, at the end of the lease, if they damaged it or contaminated further than what it is today, or is there no real way?
There's not wells on there,
Okay.
which would be what cost.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
But based on that section, basically all parcels under 112 general counsel and
Any other questions, Mr. Rodriguez Pena?
No, sir. Thank you.
Vice Chair Ferre, you have any questions? Chairwoman Gutierrez, please.
Just that it's a lot of rent just to park cars.
Yes. Any questions from anyone on the telephone?
No, I have no questions.
Okay. Does anyone wish to move the item? Moved by Rodriguez Pena, seconded by Chairwoman Gutierrez. Discussion closed. Anyone in opposition to it? Hearing no opposition, the item passes unanimously. Thank you. Thanks, Jason. Okay. Informational items. Mr. Chair, is there anyone in particular that we wish to go over today, or is it just in our packets?
The informational items that are in your packet are self-explanatory. I do want to make 3 announcements for information purposes. This week, Team Florida, the Florida Transportation Commission, will meet in Orlando on Thursday and Friday. On Thursday, Miami-Dade, the Citizens Independent Transportation Trust is holding their Transportation Summit. And late in the afternoon, MDX will be on a panel along with Florida DOT, MDT, and other agencies to discuss our major projects that are underway or planned in the near future. So I'll be participating along with Secretary Pago and others. That same day, Thursday, is our MPO meeting. Significance of the MPO meeting this month is that the board will select a new chairperson for the MPO. And along those lines, at the County Commission, the new chairman of the County Commission, Mr. Monestein, he named Vice Chair Steve Bobo to chair the Transportation Committee that will have direct responsibility over Florida DOT and Miami-Dade Expressway Authority. So the environment is a little bit changing, but it's a very familiar faces. We'll see what happens on Thursday at the MPO. I think that's a big vote of who will lead the MPO.
And you will have a report for us?
Of course. I'll report on it on Tuesday at the board meeting, the results of all of that.
Excellent.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Vice Chair Frere.
Since I am your representative at the MPO, I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that one of the discussions, or the main discussion at the MPO this week, will be Commissioner Moss's request and the subsequent request by former Chair Sosa that 3 projects be selected as corridors. One of the corridors that will be, of course, be discussed is the east-west corridor. The Commissioner Pepe Diaz's position was that 836 had to be included. The director, Jesus Guerra, answered that it already was included for BRT. Then he corrected himself and said it wasn't for BRT, it was for express buses. There is confusion between BRT and express buses. So I asked Mr. Guerra in my meeting with him this week in preparation for the MPO meeting that it be abundantly clear that Commissioner Diaz's request be adhered to, and that is that 836B considered as an east-west alternative, because the other consideration is Flagler Street. And you and I both know that Flagler Street is impossible because of its narrowness, for it to be a significant improvement on east-west movement, especially for the people who live in the south, in the West Kendall area, who have to use some kind of an east-west road to get home. And so I'm just putting this on the record so that everyone is aware that I will be stressing that and coming up with the possibilities. Now, it seems to me, following Director Rodriguez's emphatic positions on this over the years, that 836 must be considered to be 836-112. In other words, it's not 836, it's 836 and 112 because of the constraints that 836 may or may not have. Now that creates a little bit of a problem with Jose Pepe Diaz because he wants it to be 836. And that's, to me, just a technical issue. And I, of course, am not taking any kind of a position on that, but I'm just putting on the record that it is expanded from 836 to 836-112.
Thank you for that report, Mr. Ferrer. That's very informative. We appreciate that. Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, just for this committee, and I know there's new members in this committee as well, is that for years the position of the authority has been we will support transit on the capital side. In fact, we have done everything possible to prepare the highways. The RFPs that are out on the street for 836 speak specifically to transit running on shoulders and making sure everything is prepared that way. But on the operations side, we've stayed away from the operations side, and that is our position currently.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I think just to expand on that.
Yes.
In new Chair Monestein's memorandum, in his reference to MDX, he specifically states in that request that the committee look into the possibility of MDX paying for parking at the. Did he use the word terminals?
Yes, actually,
or hubs, or he didn't use the word hubs. He used the word terminals.
He used terminals. Yeah, it's actually in line with what Miami-Dade Planning and Zoning has. And it's a different word, a different name right now, a different department. But for years, Miami-Dade has prepared hubs around the county for transportation centers. Our strategic plan back in 2007 and the update that we're working on now speaks to those hubs as well at termini of our expressways. Again, if the issue is participate in a capital improvement, we're all for it. In fact, we will be more than happy to participate if it makes sense. On the operations side, I've been emphatic, Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and committee members, that we stay out of the operations and maintenance side of the
Right, but that brings
equation.
up, Javier, the question, which I think it's also important for the board to know that this is going on, that that there's a very strong push, especially by Commission member Barbara Jordan, that priority be given to the north-south, that be the number one project. Of course, we have not, and I'm not going to take a position on that. But at the end of that busway, which is along the 27th Avenue corridor, extending from where the Metro Rail on 27th turns west to Hialeah, that going up north to Miami Gardens, that there be a major terminal built at the north side.
Yeah.
Well, MDX does not in any way serve that, and so the question is going to be, can MDX monies be used for, and I've obviously not taken a position because that's something that the board has to do, but it's my opinion, and I would recommend that we not participate in any parking area or terminal or any areas where MDX does not currently have a road.
And Mr. Vice Chair, I believe, and Secretary Pago can correct me if my memory serves me right, I think DOT was working on a project at the termini of 27th Avenue up by where it intersects with the Turnpike. If I'm not mistaken, Gus, if my memory serves me right, I know you guys were looking at a project. It was either up there by the Turnpike or where it intersects with the Palmetto. But I know it was some sort of a park and ride along the 27th Avenue.
It's a major terminal.
Correct. Because it came to the Transportation Planning Council and through all of the MPO committees a number of years back.
And MDC has their plan.
Correct.
Yep.
Yes.
Is there any other comments from anybody else? In light of the chairman stepping away here, I'll continue with the program. Mr. Executive Director, any other announcements, any other comments?
Aside from what's in the announcements, and I believe for the attorneys on the board, we're going to have on the 21st tomorrow training available for securities law, which will give you a continuing education credit. So for the attorneys on the board or anybody who's interested, by all means, they can participate at tomorrow's training.
Yeah, I would also like to inform the board that there's a lot of activity in Tallahassee regarding transportation, which may or may not affect MDX. On the 29th of this month, there will be, sponsored by the Florida Chamber of Commerce, a transportation summit at which the main feature speaker is Mario Diaz-Balart at lunch. But at that meeting, besides the governor, there will be an alignment of all the transportation people that are involved in different areas. The issue of funding, tolls, expressways, and where monies are going is a very, very touchy subject. And I just want you to know that at this state of the game, it is my personal opinion that we're not getting too much money in Southeast Florida, that all the expenditures in the state in the next 5 years are really going into Central Florida.
Any further comments? If not, I see no more business at hand, then I